So on to this evening. I'd like to introduce our speaker this evening, who is Simon Parker, who will speak to the title, Cycling 3,427 Miles Around Pandemic Britain. Simon is an Oxfordshire-based travel writer, broadcast journalist and public speaker who has reported from over 100 countries. He has worked across a wide range of themes and subjects, including product shortages in Venezuela, the migrant crisis in Greece, social inequality in the barrios of northern Colombia, and climate change in the high Andes and Svalbard. Simon has paraglided solo through the Andes, hiked up Bali's highest volcanoes, and driven a rickshaw the length of India. In 2016, he sailed and cycled from China to London in 133 days for a BBC World Service documentary. His award-winning Earth Cycle TV show has been broadcast in over 20 countries and can be viewed in the UK on YouTube and on Amazon Prime Video. In tonight's lecture, he will talk about cycling 3,427 miles around pandemic Britain during 2020 and 2021. He travelled to the furthest corners of Britain, including Shetland, Scilly, the Highlands, Cumbria, and the North York Moors, to find out how the pandemic had impacted people of all backgrounds. This is a ground-level portrait of Britain with dozens of unique stories: farmers, fishermen, artists, and musicians. Young and old, rich and poor, Simon will also talk about his own struggles with anxiety, bereavement, and mental health. Please do welcome Simon to the stage.
Well, thank you very much to Caitlin and the whole Royal Geographical Society. It is a great honour and a great privilege to stand on this stage in front of you this evening, albeit a slightly terrifying one. I've done hundreds of these around the world, but this is the one that's been playing on my mind the most. There's nothing to say about you. You're all lovely people. As you've just heard, my name is Simon Parker. I'm a travel writer, a broadcaster, a newspaper columnist, and under normal circumstances, I feel incredibly lucky to get to travel around the world and say that I am a travel writer, because this is exactly what I daydreamed about doing when I was a teenager. I didn't really invest much time and energy into my academic studies, but I did spend a whole lot of time sifting through old dog-eared copies of National Geographic, and that was what I wanted to do with my life. Here I am reporting to a BBC World Service audience of about 100 million listeners sometimes about the joys of ice fishing in the depths of the Finnish winter. And the thing I remember most about this day was just how painfully cold it was. It was about minus 45 degrees centigrade, and it almost felt like warm blood was passing around my body, and when it got to my palm and my wrist, it kind of stopped dead. It was an absolutely very strange experience. But as you'll learn tonight, these are the sorts of places which I get an immense thrill out of visiting, because these are the places that I used to daydream about when I was an incredibly restless teenager. Here I am at Machu Picchu, again reporting for the BBC World Service and Radio 4 about Andean spectacled bears, Paddington bears. And I remember once I'd been broadcasting back to Broadcasting House, looking back at that and just thinking, this is incredible. I really, you know, those pinch me moments in life where you just feel incredibly lucky that this is what you get to do for a living. And over the course of the last few years, I have done some weird, wacky, often terribly thought out projects. In 2015, a group of friends and I decided to drive these three-wheeled, 7-horsepower rickshaws from the foot of the Himalayas all the way to the southern point of India. If anyone in here is thinking of doing it, the only piece of advice I would give you is don't. And then the year after, as though that wasn't stupid enough, I decided to dream up this crazy idea to sail and cycle halfway around the world, because honestly it sounded good on paper, but then ultimately I ended up sailing across the Pacific, cycling across America, sailing across the Atlantic, and then cycling all the way back round through Europe. It took 133 days, and I basically lost about 10 kilograms in weight because this was, believe it or not, a calm day in the middle of the Pacific, and I spent basically 30 days throwing up. I tried to give off this impression of being an intrepid, fearless travel writer, but ultimately I am none of those things, and I spent a whole month covered from head to toe in my own vomit. So these are the sorts of crazy adventures that I really strive to do. This was exactly what I always wanted to do with my life. And in March 2020, I had the great honor of being stationed in Cape Town in South Africa, and I secured this exclusive interview for the BBC with Roger Federer, arguably the world's greatest ever sports star.